Whether you're picking and grinning or just picking or just grinning, grab a drink, pull up a seat. It's time for Roots Music Rambling. Turn it up.
Hey, so Charlie Crockett is not a Satan worshiper, apparently. I mean, what is he even doing with his life?
Well, just for the record, this, by the time people listen to this happened, a month or so
It'll
ago.
be old news, yeah.
It'll be old news. But when we're recording this, the day we were recording this was the day after Twin, what are they called?
Twin Temple.
Twin Temple, yes. Twin Temple announced on their social media that they have been removed from 2 Charlie Crockett events, opening for Charlie Crockett, 2 events. Because they are a satanic doo-wop band is how people describe them. And they have satanic imagery, and they have the devils and the pitchforks and the blood and the mouth and the very Alice Cooper-y and stuff like that.
And upside down crosses.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. If that's your thing and that's how your gimmick, cool. I've never listened to their music. I don't know anything about them.
Same.
I'm sure they're perfectly fine. And they obviously have an audience that's very supportive of them, because when this announcement came out on their social media, the fans of Twin Temple and or worshipers of Satan, I don't know that they necessarily overlap, but I'm sure they do in some regards, decided to go crazy on Charlie Crockett's social media accounts to the point that Charlie gutted his Instagram. Like, he took the whole thing down. There were at 3:00 this afternoon, there were 0 posts on his Instagram account, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
And so, but the media and a lot of the social media, lemmings and hangers on have made this a big deal, and it's not a big deal. In fact, Twin Temple, in an interview with Rolling Stone today that was posted, actually said, "We love Charlie Crockett. We were just letting our fans know that we weren't going to be at those shows. And because there was such a kerfuffle about it, Jack White stepped in and invited them to open for him."
Yes.
And then, was it Dokken or somebody like that?
Oh,
they're opening
Danzig.
up for Danzig. There you go. I knew it started with a D. Danzig. They're going to open for Danzig. So they have a much better situation for them and their audience now than they did for it's 2 shows.
Right.
Wasn't, we're going to open for his whole fucking tour and we got fired. And to Twin Temple's credit, that's what they've said. They were like, no, this was just like, he told us that we were, or the management or whatever told us that we were taken off because of satanic imagery, but that's the business. That's how it works. And that's exactly what Charlie Crockett has said too in his subsequent posts defending it. It's like, hey man, that sucks. Sometimes you don't get gigs and sometimes you get fired from gigs, and I'm not going to have, satanic images. And if you think about it, if you take a couple steps back and don't react like social media douchebags react, it makes perfect sense. This was obviously a management fuck up. Somebody invited them to open for these 2 shows, not realizing or not having the good sense to know that Charlie Crockett's audience is not going to get into satanic imagery, whether the music is 50s doo-wop or not,
Right.
which aligns more with Charlie Crockett. But it didn't make any sense.
Well, I think it's more just a lack of communication, right? Like you said, it's a management thing, and Charlie seems like he had no idea who was going to be opening for him. And then when he finally realized it, he was like, okay, we got to pump the brakes here, people.
Yeah, let's not do that.
But I did look at Twin Temple's Instagram, and because, admittedly, before this whole incident, I never even heard of them. But, you hear that they're satanic and it's like, oh, interest is piqued, So I went and looked at their Instagram, and it's all out there plain to see that what they're about. So either someone didn't do their due diligence or, but they have also, Twin Temple, I read, has kind of a relationship as well with Shooter Jennings, who Charlie Crockett also has a relationship with. So, article I read positioned Shooter Jennings as like maybe like the what is it, the common denominator, you know?
I think he produced a Twin Temple album, a recent Twin Temple album, maybe one that's not even out yet. And then, of course, he's produced several Charlie Crockett albums,
Right.
the last three, the trilogy that Charlie just finished. So, yeah, there is a common denominator there. But even in the article that I read on Rolling Stone, actually, about they asked him about Shooter Jennings and the Twin Temple folks. So Shooter's kind of like he's in both of our camps. He's not. You know, he loves Charlie. He loves us. Like in the music business between Charlie Crockett and Twin Temple and whoever else, this is not a big deal. People get dropped as openers a lot for a lot more weird reasons than this.
Right.
This reasoning actually makes sense. It sucks that someone thought this would be a good opening act for Charlie Crockett, which created the situation. But somewhat not in defense of Twin Temple, but certainly it doesn't help that Charlie Crockett has decided to now troll people back over this. And the reason I say that is because not only did he take down all of his Instagram posts, but just a few minutes ago before we hit record, he has posted a single Instagram post, which is the movie poster for Sinners from last year, which has a vampire with blood coming out of his mouth. And I think the caption from Charlie said, "This is my favorite movie last year," or something like that. Oh. So now Charlie is trolling the trolls who have been trolling him over this thing. So I think Charlie's having fun with it.
There's a whole lot of trolling going on.
There is. But what I think this will pan out, and if people jump in the comments and tell us this, because again, we're recording this probably a month before you hear this. This whole thing's probably blown over by now, I would anticipate. But I think what we'll be saying a month from now, whenever this episode airs, is we'll be saying, oh yeah, that thing, I don't even remember who was involved.
Yeah.
Because this is either fans of Twin Temple or people who love Satan or whatever. Or both. They're trying to make a free speech argument out of this, and it has nothing to do with that at all. Nobody is trying to limit Twin Temple's speech. Charlie's just saying, hey, I don't want satanic shit in front of my audience.
Right.
They can go open for somebody else.
Right.
And it's in the music business, it's not a big deal. But people on the social media has got to have something to bitch about, so they're bitching about it.
And if Twin Temple didn't describe themselves as satanic doo-wop, like nobody would care that Charlie Crockett eliminated this act as his support for 2 dates. Nobody would care.
Exactly.
But, you know, and I don't, like you said, the people in Twin Temple, are they actually Satan worshipers, or is this just a shtick? You know, who knows? And really, is it any of our business? I mean, as long as they're not hurting anyone or harming animals, like, you know what I mean? Like, go do what you got to do, you know? So it's funny because Charlie Crockett, wasn't he involved in another sort of kerfuffle, as you said, not that long ago with another country?
Well, he's been in an ongoing, he's been the subject of Gavin Adcock's insults.
That's it. Yes.
Adcock says he's a cosplay cowboy and he's not a real cowboy. And somebody commented on one of my posts today, a little cartoon panel of Charlie Crockett being a Rastafarian subway riding busker, which he was once upon a time. He rode subways in New York busking for money and entertaining people. And then he suddenly discovered, oh, I can sing country music and make money at it. And they're making fun of the fact that he doesn't seem authentically cowboy, authentically country. Whether or not he is, I don't care. He's from Texas. He sounds pretty fucking authentic to me. I like his music. He's done 47 fucking albums in the last 5 years that are all great country sounding songs. So I don't really care. But I thought Charlie's response, I tried to read his full response to the original response on Instagram, but of course he took his Instagram down, and the media outlets have sort of thrown fuel on the fire here by just pulling out the 2 sentences where Charlie sounds like a prick.
Yeah.
And so they've made him not sound great in this whole thing. I'm very, very appreciative of Twin Temple, which, by the way, is husband and wife, I think, Alexandra James and Zachary James. Their album is called Doomed Lovers. It was produced by Shooter Jennings, and it's out now. Arriving October 9th.
Okay.
But their interview with Rolling Stone today, which we'll try to remember to link in the show notes, even though it'll be a month old by the time you hear it or see it. But in their interview, they were like, we don't understand why this is such a big deal. They did make some little kind of comment about the whole free speech thing, and we want the right to be able to say what we want to say, but nobody's trying to limit them. They're just saying Charlie Crockett's audience is not the right place for that, so let's put you over here. And now they're opening for Jack White and Danzig, and good for them. I hope they have a tremendous success over this.
Is that the wrong thing to say?
I think you're supposed to say "Hail Satan." I don't know.
Oh dear Lord! Oh God!
I'm not in that world.
Madonna mia. How many languages do I need to put it in?
I don't know. So, welcome to Roots Music Rambler. She's Frank,
and he's Falls,
and we're rambling on through the bizarre stories behind the music we love.
For real, though, let's emphasize bizarre. But our guest today, I get the feeling she's not anywhere near bizarre like Twin Temple. So yes, today on the show, we're talking with indie folk and Americana artist Julia Sanders. And Julia has such an interesting story. She's based in both Asheville, North Carolina, and San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. She gets to call both places home. And while that makes me insanely jealous, I am very much looking forward to talking to her and discussing how both of those places and all the others that she's traveled through and lived in, have influenced her songwriting and her music. She's one of those artists that kind of lends truth to our tagline, where music, travel, history, and culture intersect.
That's absolutely right. Her lyrics are definitely relatable for many of us, but not necessarily in a conventional way. She covers topics in her songwriting that go a bit deeper. For example, she'll write about parenthood or just human connection, the meaning of life. So she gets a little deeper than kind of the surface level topics that we typically hear from singer-songwriters. And her voice, it's been described as sweet yet gritty and simultaneously matches the warmth and roughness of her subject matter. So there's a lot of kind of contradictions in what you hear in her music and the sound, but it's really beautiful stuff.
For sure. And, I definitely felt that while exploring Julia's catalog. So her writing, I think, is very introspective and vulnerable and even hopeful, especially on her latest single, Maybe Joy. So the story behind that song is actually kind of fascinating, and I think it's kind of fun. So it makes me think of it as like a scene from a movie. So we'll definitely ask her to tell us that whole story so everybody can hear it.
Absolutely. And speaking of her catalog of music, Julia Sanders has released 3 full-length albums, 1 EP, and a collection of singles, including the aforementioned Maybe Joy, which is her latest single. Could that song maybe end up on another album or EP? We're going to ask about that too. Yes,
we will. And of course, we will have our Pick and the Grinnin' segment, where we choose songs, albums, artists, whatever. So make sure that you stick around for that as well.
All right, let's take a quick break to grab a refill and settle in and thank the fine sponsors that make this show possible. Then when we come back, we will be joined by Julia before we go to break, they are not a sponsor, but just to show sponsors what they might get if they come on board. I'm going to enjoy a refreshing beverage from Skyline Chili.
Oh, y'all got Skyline there in Louisville?
Absolutely, we do.
I didn't know that.
Anyway,
okay.
I had to drive by there for dinner tonight, so I grabbed some cheese conies. Anyway, when we come back, we'll be joined by Julia Sanders. Stay tuned. This is Roots Music Rambler.
Your favorite friend group is back. FX's Adults follows 5 roommates living in New York, leaning on each other to navigate love, work, friendship, and family, while tackling pressing questions of your 20s like, what if the person who inherited your fake ID is cooler than you ever were? Why does being around your family make you regress into your worst self? And how do you tell your roommates that you have other friends? FX's Adults. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
Take your love for the game further with EA Sports Madden NFL 27. Powered by the all-new Persona engine, it's your league. Transform how you run your franchise. And with a kickoff bundle, you can start from the beginning with access to College Football 27 and Madden NFL 27 standard editions. From campus legend to NFL superstar, make your rise with a kickoff bundle. Learn more at EA.com. Rated E for everyone with mild lyrics, user interact, and in-game purchases includes random items.
I wanna be loud, but I don't wanna shout. I miss my friends, but I hate going out. Don't wanna grow old, but I want to be wise. Wanna know the plan, but I want the surprise. I want all that glitters.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. The song you just heard coming back from break is called Unsatisfiable, and it is from the album called Dark Matter by Julia Sanders, who joins us on the show this week. Julia, how are you?
Good. I love that you picked that song to start us off.
Well, it's a very compelling song. You have a tendency, we have found in listening through your catalog the last few days, that you've got these really introspective lyrics. They're very evident in that song, and it's an interesting idea that I think we all kind of wrestle with. And my question to you about that song, other than where it came from, was, do you think contentment is something we can attain?
I'm working on it. I'm really working on it. Yeah. So that song, I pull inspiration from a lot of things, and that came from listening to an interview with a writer, Andrea Marie Brown, and she was doing an interview with Glennon Doyle on a totally different podcast, and talking about how a teacher had said once this idea, like, are you satisfiable? And I just thought that is such a good question. And as someone who wrestles with that question a lot in terms of, just my own brain, it just set me off on a tangent, and I knew I had to write a song about it. But yeah, I think we are satisfiable. What she went on to say in the interview that was so powerful is really like, in the capitalist system that we're in, right? Like, we're being told if we buy the next thing, then we're going to be happy. And that's how the whole system works, right? And so we are being kept in a state of unsatisfiable. And really, if we can let go of that, which is like a lifelong journey that I think we're all trying to do, then yes, we are satisfiable. Innately, I think we are satisfiable, but I think we're very trained to not be,
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that I love quoting Steven Tyler, the great American poet, Steven Tyler, who probably didn't write this. Somebody else probably did, but I love the line in one of the songs somewhere along the way, life's a journey, not a destination. And I think when you learn that it's not about where you're going, but it's about what you're experiencing along the way, wherever you're going. Yeah. I think when you get to in your 40s and 50s and you realize that's when you can go, yeah, okay, I'm pretty content and happy with my life, because I know it's not about where I'm going or what I've gotten to. It's just about enjoying what's here.
Absolutely. I was about to say that feels like the wisdom of later in life, and not, your teens and 20s. Like,
for sure,
you're all about the destination at that age,
Right.
And then you get to be 40 and you think, I've been to a lot of destinations and I'm still chasing stuff. So what does that mean? What does that really mean? So yeah, that was definitely the beginning of that song. We started out real light, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
We just dove right in there. Yes.
Love
we're
it.
not afraid.
I wrote a record called Dark Matter, so I'm here for it, obviously.
Right. And so, that's a great lead in too, because that album, especially, like a lot of your songs, you seem to be wrestling with other sorts of topics, like, the challenges posed by AI, and that's being used to make music, and, just human suffering on a global stage, on a global level. So like, how much was taken out of you to write those songs, or was it just cathartic in a way?
I think, it's funny to think about it taking something out of me because I feel like music is so clarifying for me. Like music is where I'm able to like alchemize all of those big questions and those big feelings into a song that makes sense. Otherwise it's all just up here all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was more like a process of uncovering and clarifying than it was like taking something on that wasn't already there, and I've said this about Dark Matter a lot, but like I wrote that first song and then I sort of realized, okay, I'm going to write a record where I just think about all the things I don't really want to talk about or don't really want to write about. And like, I would ask myself as I sat down to write as like a prompt, what's something I don't want to write about? What's something I don't talk about often? Or what's a song that I think people don't want to write about, And it was a really interesting way to prompt myself through writing what became that record.
Excellent.
I would agree. The songs they're deep, heavy subject matter, but definitely important, especially nowadays.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I want to ask,
pop, but we need both, right? We need like fluff and the stuff that connects to what we're thinking and we're worrying about, and yeah. Sure.
Well, it's those deep, thoughtful, thought-provoking pieces of music that actually make the world change a little bit. So it's always good to have those. Certainly, you need a light little bop every now and then. That's nothing wrong with that. We can do that. But so I want to ask you about a more I guess uplifting song, maybe a more positive song. Your new single, Maybe Joy. I felt was really compelling to listen to, and I really liked that one a lot. I wonder what led to writing that. What's the story behind that song? We referenced it in the beginning of the episode of the show here, and we're going to play it here in a minute. But I want to know a little bit more about the genesis of that song, Maybe Joy.
That song took a little while, I think, for me. That song took like a couple years. I started doing a Substack just for a way to connect with people and a way to kind of like share my songwriting process a little bit. And so I just wrote a long one about Maybe Joy when that song was released. And it kind of started on a trip. I went back to New Orleans where I used to live for Mardi Gras to visit friends. And it was like in a very difficult period of time, both like politically in the US and also personally. My mom had just passed not that long before that. And I just showed up to New Orleans, like in all my messiness, which New Orleans is so good for, and then you're just with friends and it's so creative and it felt so powerful. And I felt like I came through that experience with all of this, like renewed faith in artists and creatives and punks and everyone, that's like still doing amazing things despite how scary the world can feel. And I sort of took that, but I didn't write the song yet. And then I had my first big tour with my band in Asheville, multi-state tour, because I haven't really been much of a touring musician in the past 10 years because I have 2 small children. So it limits my ability to do that. And it was the same kind of thing where I'd like really gotten in my head about the music industry and all the pieces of the music industry. And I mean, we could spend the rest of the show probably talking about that, so we don't have to go there. But just like actually playing live music with my band and like feeling the energy of the shows and feeling the energy of just playing music itself as a craft was like so revitalizing also. And I think that's when I wrote down, in my notes app, like, what would I do without voice memos and notes app? Just Maybe Joy as a title. And then I went back. My family is now living in Mexico most of the time and started writing Maybe Joy. And I had that line, like, news says music's over, art is obsolete, also written down from something, from like a AI spiral or something I was having. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to start out really vulnerable, I think sometimes when I write, I have a tendency to write from this like wiser version of myself, if that makes sense, like the person that can see the bigger picture. And I think this song started out as being like, you can just be yourself with all of your worries. And then the chorus gets to be maybe the wiser self.
Excellent. And so you mentioned that the song took you a couple of years to actually write and finish, but how about the recording process? I also thought that was pretty interesting. So you were in San Miguel de Allende, right? And then your band was in North Carolina. So
Yes.
how did that whole process work out?
I mean, I had not planned to release this as a single. My plan it was to just write for my hopefully next record while I've been in San Miguel. And so I've just been making demos, but I'm left to my own devices and I'm doing my own layering. And I got this little synth keyboard that's been really fun to play with because I don't play synth at all. So it was very like freeing to just find sounds and hunt around for sounds instead of, I get kind of stuck in my cowboy chords sometimes and it can get boring in there, And so I did this demo and I sent it to my bandmate, Steve Ernest in Asheville, because I just send them stuff as I'm working on it. And he sent back some like guitar pieces and stuff. And I was like, this is actually not like, this is good, just the way it is right now. We could just share this right now. And then we kept building on it and it just turned into something that I didn't want to wait for whenever the next record happens. And then every time I read the news, I'm like, okay, let's just put this song out now, please.
Excellent. Well, I think it's high time that we listened to said song since we've been talking about it for the last few minutes. And it's time to step out and check in with our sponsors as well. So we're going to go out with Maybe Joy from Julia Sanders. Stay tuned. This is Roots Music Rambler.
Says music's over, art is obsolete. So pack up your dreams and their impossibilities. Anyway, what can I say in times like these? The world's so full of pain, I can't let it be. Joy can make a crack.
Your favorite friend group is back. FX as Adults follows 5 roommates living in New York, leaning on each other to navigate love, work, friendship, and family, while tackling pressing questions of your 20s like, what if the person who inherited your fake ID is cooler than you ever were? Why does being around your family make you regress into your worst self? And how do you tell your roommates that you have other friends? FX as Adults. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
Well, they blew up the chicken man in Philly last night. Now they blew up his house too. Down on the boardwalk, they're getting ready for a fight. Gonna see what them racket boys can do. Now there's trouble busting in from outer state, and the DA can't get no relief. Gonna be a rumble out on the promenade, and the gambling commissioner's hanging on by the skin of his teeth. Everything dies, maybe that's a fact. Maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on, fix your hair real pretty. Meet me tonight in Atlantic City.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. The song you just heard there is probably one you recognize. It's called Atlantic City. It's one of those songs on that one of them there Bruce Springsteen records. But the version you heard was by our guest Julia Sanders. And Julia, you had a kind of an entire EP of covers of Bruce Springsteen songs. I think you are originally from New Jersey. So tell us a little bit about behind that project.
Yeah. I am from New Jersey originally. I was born in Philadelphia, but we moved when I was like 7 to Princeton, New Jersey. And during the pandemic, we were all doing our things. We were like making sourdough, and we were, I don't know, what other stuff were we all into? Like banana bread. There was like a bunch of hobbies, right? And
Definitely.
I guess my weird musician version was like, I need to do something. I'm going crazy. I'm not playing music. I'm not playing shows is what I mean. And I wasn't playing with anybody else. And I had this idea because I was always like, I felt like I was like a televangelist for Bruce Springsteen or something with my musician friends, like, no, he's really good, you guys, like, you need to listen. The lyrics are really good. He's like the Bob Dylan, second part, like, just stick with me, And I was like, maybe I should just do a covers EP. I was sort of in this place where I was really trying, and I still really try, like, when you get an idea, to just say yes to the idea and follow it through without, kind of shutting it off before you even start the process. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to do this thing where I record these Springsteen songs, and I'm going to send them to different friends around the country, and they can, add on whatever they want to add on and sort of build on it. And that's where that EP came from. Yeah. So there's 5 songs on there. I could have done more.
I'm curious about the process. And forgive me for my ignorance, but I'm not a musician, so I don't know. Do you have to get permission to do covers like that?
Yeah, I had to go get like a whatever it is, like a legal waiver for, the amount of streams that I have. So if you guys go crazy, cool. I have to re-up on my licensing, but yeah.
Well, after all of our audience listens to the show and goes and downloads all your stuff, you're going to be in trouble.
That's fine. Maybe it'll get his attention, and I can go on tour with Springsteen. So
my goodness.
You know what? Incidentally, I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and Jimmy Iovine, the famous producer and cohort on Beats with Dr. Dre, he was a early engineer and producer for Bruce Springsteen's stuff. And that was like one of his first big acts that he was kind of tied to. And he was actually saying on this podcast interview that I heard today was Bruce didn't care about making money. Bruce didn't care about being famous. Bruce didn't even care if he was happy. The only thing Bruce wanted to be was great. And that's the only thing that drove him. He just wanted to be great at what he did. I certainly would argue that he accomplished that, but I thought that was an interesting 100%. Insight into what motivated and what drove him was just, I just want to be great at what I'm doing.
He's a great storyteller. And like, what's interesting to me about Springsteen is like, he's really telling stories that are not like, my songwriting is so real, like I'm very much telling my own personal story all of the time. But he really like creates characters and he has this whole aspect that's like very different. So like while I admire very much what he does, it's like it's also so different from my process. Maybe someday I'll do a whole, I don't know, like character based album, but it seems interesting. Well, sound-wise for sure. Like that track Maybe Joy, I tell people like it's very Tunnel of Love era Springsteen inspired, the sound of that song.
Yeah, I would agree. We could have a whole episode just talking about Bruce Springsteen.
I know, we really could.
I fell in love with his music at the age of 10. It was the year that Born in the USA was released. And like you said, great storyteller. And each song on that album is its own little story with different characters. And it was at that point that I realized music is more than just sound, that it is, because I was such an avid reader even at that age. It was like reading, it was almost like a book, but, in musical form. And so ever since then, I've just adored Springsteen. And like Jason said, I would argue that he did achieve, greatness. So now that we're talking about Springsteen, though, who else has influenced you, Julia, and your music career?
I know that question was coming, and I should have prepared. I have a lot of like Americana type roots influences that listen to Williams, of course, and Gillian Welch and things like that I came to, in my 20s or 30s, like in terms of influence. And then growing up, we listened to, of course, like a lot of Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan, and that kind of stuff really got in my head, Carole King, like that. if you look at the cover for my album Morning Star, the one before Dark Matter, I told my photographer, I was like, I want it to just look like pregnant tapestry Carol Kane, you know, and I feel like we got that vibe pretty well. So I love that like 70s rock, Bonnie Raitt era, that whole sound definitely influences. And then, you know, there's just so many amazing folks out there that I'm just loving. I mean, there's from Asheville, we have like Wednesday and MJ Liederman and
Oh yeah.
and that connection to like Waxahachie, who's amazing, all those folks. Like I'm just always catching people, you know, new bands that are doing incredible stuff that inspire me.
Absolutely. And then when did you kind of know or decide or realize that this is what you wanted to do professionally?
Professionally, it came later. Like I started playing music as a little kid. I was 5 years old and I started playing music. My parents said, "What do you want to play?" And I said, "A harp." And they said, "No." Would you like to play a violin? And I was like, "Fine."
Okay.
So I did that for a long time, and then I sort of switched to the guitar and just always played and sort of wrote, but like in a way where I didn't really take myself seriously. I just had a ton of like imposter syndrome around it, I think, you know. And I also just didn't know a lot of working musicians. I didn't know a lot of songwriters. I'll say that.
Okay.
I didn't know a lot of songwriters until I moved to New Orleans, and then I met all these incredible songwriters and I sort of was able to see what the process was like. And it really demystified it a little bit for me, you know, that it wasn't this like mysterious thing that happens in a studio when you are a rock star or something, you know, and that people just write songs like my parents are, you know, painters and sculptors, like it's a craft like anything else. And so that opened it up to me. And then then I kind of just dove in from there, and it made so much sense. Like I had done other art forms before that, like, and sort of tried to tell stories that way. And I realized that music is really the way that I'm able to communicate in my clearest voice.
Yeah.
Nice. So we focus a lot in our conversations here on the show about the sense of place and how it impacts music. And so obviously we've talked about you were born in Philadelphia. You kind of grew up in New Jersey. You're currently living in Mexico, San Miguel de Allende, I believe. And you obviously have a base or some sort of tie to Asheville. You've mentioned New Orleans. So I'm curious how you think place, and probably I would say even more particularly now that you're living more full-time in Mexico, how is that sense of place finding its way into your sound and your songwriting?
Ooh, you know, I am curious to see if like the music of Mexico is gonna like find its way into my songwriting more. You know, we've only been there for a year, and like I'm absorbing. I think I'm still in my sponge mode right now.
Yeah.
But definitely like listening to more Mexican music and Mexican artists and hearing just, you know, different ways of playing are probably getting in there, but I don't know if it's made it into the writing process yet. But certainly like Asheville has such a rich musical history that I'm still learning from, you know, both from like just the roots and the traditional and, you know, banjo and ballad singing and all of that amazing stuff, and country music, of course. And then from New Orleans, like I was, you know, surrounded by more country music there actually, but like some R&B and things like that. So I don't know. I feel like it all just kind of goes in the mix, and I don't know a ton of artists. I mean, there are artists that are very one genre, but I feel like more and more the people that I listen to and that I respect are really like crossing genres in amazing ways between indie rock and folk and country, and you know, and I think we've all just lived in a lot of different places and absorbed a lot of different things, and then if you're really being true to your own voice, then it comes out as sort of a mix of a bunch of things, you know.
That right. Yeah, that's a great answer. I'm not a musician. I've lived in Chicago pretty much my whole life. So, I can only guess what that would be like. And I think you've described it pretty well there. So, more about your songwriting. So we've described it as vulnerable yet relevant, right? Especially the your single Body. If we could talk about that for a second. So why was it important for you to write and record that song?
Well, it started out, my son had just been born. He's almost 4, so this was a while ago. And I was rocking him one night, and that line came to me, my body is a home, and I was just thinking about the superpower of being a mother, right? Where like you have this being where like no matter where they are, especially when they're that little, if they're with you, they're okay, and it was just that line came to me. And then I started sort of riffing on it in my journal, but it was just, it really couldn't be a sweet song because it was right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. And it was also like, we're still very much in it, but I feel like it was the beginning of a lot of like anti-trans legislature and around like, particularly the medical field and bathrooms in North Carolina was, still a whole thing. And so it was impossible to just journal about bodies without getting into the politics of the moment. And then also, I'm a woman in my early 40s. So like bodies are also really complicated. And my phone spends all of its time telling me, how I'm supposed to not look like I'm getting older and do this and do this and do this. And that's a whole other piece about bodies that was not going to be left out of this song, So it's like, I don't know, it could have been a lullaby, but then there was just a lot of other things that needed to be said once I really started digging in.
Well, as a woman in my early 50s and the mother of 2, like I certainly appreciate that song. And for all the reasons that you mentioned, it could have been a very sweet song, like you said. And but I think those topics are so important and definitely need to be discussed. And this is a great little medium, for us to kind of consume it and then have it lead to deeper discussions.
Nice.
Yeah. And I think like what's interesting is I feel like we're seeing a shift in music where, we are allowing artists to age and continue to talk about what's going on in the world. And so we're hearing perspectives outside of a 20-year-old. And frankly, I think there's a lot more to be said, that we haven't really had the chance to explore in music in that way. So I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all are. Good stuff. So you've got this we touched on Maybe Joy, your new single, and you said that it might be, you kind of banked that hoping that maybe it'll be on a new project. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the potential of a new project because I'm looking at the credits here, and if I'm not mistaken, the Andrija Tokic had something to do with this particular recording. And I'm not connecting the dots in my head, but I think he produced a record of someone we interviewed relatively recently. So I know that he is someone who is a successful, sort of producer, engineer, mixing artist in I think in Nashville. But tell us a little bit about that, working with the behind the scenes folks, especially from so many different places geographically. And is this a sign of a new project to come?
So he runs a studio called The Bomb Shelter in Nashville. And I've worked with them through my producer, John James, is very good friends with, like Andre and the crew there. And so, we worked with them for mastering in the past. And so I just connected with him because we had already worked in the past with mastering. But this was the first time I had him really do a mix on a song that I've done. And they just have all this amazing analog equipment there in the studio. And I've actually never been in person. I've always worked with him remote. But he was really able to like take this demo that was, pretty rough, I think. I have like a not awesome mic and, like a bad synthesizer. And I mean, Steve has better equipment at his place in Asheville, but I'm speaking for myself. So he was able to really give it this amazing warm sound. And he's really grateful that he was able to hop on. And Yeah, I don't know. Future projects are very much in the air right now. I'm just sort of like getting all my songs together like a chicken on a clutch, and then I'm like, we'll see what we do when all the eggs are there, although they kind of are. But yeah, I'm kind of just open to seeing what happens with these songs and what connections we make as a band and things like that.
Well, that definitely gives us something to look forward to. And for all of our listeners and viewers, where can they find your stuff and how can they keep up with you so that we all, get the news at the same time that you have a new project coming up?
Yeah. So I have a website, obviously, Julia Sanders Music. I'm on all the streaming services. The best way, is to go on Bandcamp. Really, for most artists, have a Bandcamp profile of some kind these days, and so you can go on there and buy the digital album, even if you don't want to download it. But it helps us out a lot more than streaming for sure. And I always post new releases and stuff on there as well as Spotify and Tidal and those things. And then I'm on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok making a fool of myself, if that's your thing.
I don't do the TikToks. Jason does.
I mean, I wish I didn't feel like I had to do the TikToks.
I know.
I'm not like doing dances on there. Like I'm just,
okay.
I'm just,
Nice.
I will leave that to, I don't know, my children, I guess.
Right.
Exactly. Well, we'll make sure there are links to all those places in our show notes at rootsmusicrambler.com.
Yeah. And we've got
Julia, it's been such a pleasure
somewhere.
talking to you. Thank you for spending some time with us tonight.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Let's take a break before we get to the Picking the Grinning segment. Let's go out with a track that's a little older and sounds a little bit different than what you've already heard here tonight from Julia Sanders. This is from the album Morning Star, which came out in 2022. It's called Place We All Meet. Stay tuned. This is Roots Music Rambler.
Like a flash in a storming sky, shining out but only brief. Just a moment to live inside. No, it's nothing you can keep.
Your favorite friend group is back. FX as Adults follows 5 roommates living in New York, leaning on each other to navigate love, work, friendship, and family, while tackling pressing questions of your 20s like, what if the person who inherited your fake ID is cooler than you ever were? Why does being around your family make you regress into your worst self? And how do you tell your roommates that you have other friends? FX as Adults. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. How about that, Julia Sanders? Interesting stuff, really good tunes. I have been through, not her whole catalog, but I've been through her latest album, latest single, and a couple of others, and good stuff. I'm going to continue to go down that rabbit hole here in the next few days because I really like her stuff. Good stuff.
Yep, me too.
Great to have her on the show.
For sure.
All right, folks, it is time for the Picking the Grinning segment. This is where Frank and I have our picks for who's making us grin. That could be an album, could be an artist, could be a podcast, could be a lot of different things. Just stuff that we're listening to or consuming that we think you ought to listen to or consume as well. So, Frank, what's your Picking the Grinning this week?
Oh, okay. So my pick is actually a movie, and but it is related to music. So the movie that I'm speaking of is Stand By Me. And if you weren't aware that this year is the 40th anniversary of the release of the film Stand By Me. So if that doesn't make you feel old, then I don't know what will, because I very vividly remember going to see it in the theater with my parents. But, I was only 12 when it came out, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it defines our generation. Okay. It's one of those movies that it truly just, yes, defines a generation. So, as part of the 40-year anniversary celebration, the remaining actors, the main actors from the film, did like a little tour where they were going to various cities showing the movie, and then there was a live Q&A with them. So Jerry O'Connell, Will Wheaton, and Corey Feldman. And my sister and I attended in June here in Chicago. And we really didn't know what to expect. But of course, seeing the movie again, it always makes me emotional. And especially knowing, that River Phoenix, just a few years later, is going to, end up passing away. And of course, like every hetero, warm-blooded teenage girl at that time, I was in love with River Phoenix. And so his death hit me especially hard. And so when they did the Q&A, they had like a little chair for him, and they just like put the white t-shirt that he wore in the film. It was kind of draped over the chair. They also had a director's chair with Rob Reiner. And that brought me to tears too. And I didn't even realize it beforehand. I should have been prepared for the waterworks, but I was not. But anyway, so the reason I'm talking about it now is because, yes, it is a fantastic movie, defines the generation, but also because of the music that is in the film. So probably, well, besides the title track, Stand By Me, right? Benny King. There are other songs in there like Lollipop, like the Lollipop song, right? And to this day, if I hear that song, I can't not go and go boom, boom, like they do in the movie. And it was so funny being in the Chicago theater with all these people, and everybody did that at that scene. And I that was the type of music my parents listened to at home. And I think that music being in that movie, which I had such a strong connection to, really helped me. Like it really strengthened the connection I had to that type of music as well. So, if you love Stand By Me, let us know, talk about it, leave us a comment, so we can talk about it some more, because it truly is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I don't know if this little tour is still going on. If it is, and you happen to be in a city where it's taking place, I would recommend it. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I think it was here in Louisville, and I think I missed it. I think it was a week or so ago. When we're recording this, but it definitely looked entertaining, and I thought, man, that'd be cool if I didn't have anything else going on, but I must have been out of town or something the night that it was happening. But that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting, depressing, because it's the 40th anniversary of a movie starring people who are our age. So that sucks. But you're right. The soundtrack is all the like 50s and 60s. There may not be any 60s here. Mostly 50s things that our parents' generation grew up on.
Right.
So it's an interesting way to connect the generations of people,
for sure,
who are Gen Xers with their, baby boomer or hippie parents, who grew up listening to Bobby Day and the Bobettes and Jerry Lee Lewis and all the people, the Buddy Holly and the Crickets, are on the soundtrack as well. So great soundtrack, absolutely fantastic movie as well. And of course, written by Stephen King, which was the first technically it's not a horror movie, but the first non-horror movie that he had written.
Well, and I also learned at the Q&A that on Audible, not a sponsor, but on Audible is the novella The Body by Stephen King, and it's narrated by Will Wheaton.
Oh, cool. Very nice. That's probably worth it right there, just to hear Will Wheaton do it. That's good
absolutely
stuff. I love it. Stand By Me, the movie and the soundtrack. Well, that's a good pick in the grin and recommendation for everybody. So we'll make sure there's links to those things in the show notes so you can go find it. My pick in the grinning, I was having a conversation with my buddy Gil Holland from Sonoblast Records this week. And he happened to say, hey, check out this artist. And I don't know any of the details. He just said, check out the artist. I don't know if she's on Sonoblast, she's going to be on Sonoblast, or if he just found her and thinks she's awesome. But I start listening to her stuff. She has an album in the works, and I've heard there's some heavyweights contributing to her album, even though she's a newcomer. She only has a couple of songs on Spotify.
Okay.
But she's got some active social media channels with some clips and whatnot of songs that she's written. She's based in New Jersey, singer-songwriter. She's got a new album in the works that should be coming out in early 2027. Her name is Allie Kinney. And I have heard a couple of her songs. And Gil sent me a link to one of the cuts that's apparently going to be on her new album. So okay. I'm assuming Gil's involved somehow. But I know no details, so don't hold me to any of this. But he sent me a link to a song that I heard that was really fantastic. And I'm trying to remember the name of the song. I may be able to, I can tell you right now. Hold on. The name of the song is Autumn Tomorrow. And so, yeah, so that's coming up. And that's our pick in the grin. So Allie Kinney, singer-songwriter, nothing out yet. Look for her on the social media channels. I highly recommend her. The songs that I've heard from her are very good. And in the next few months, we should be hearing more from her. So there you go.
All right.
That's my pick for this week. All right. I guess we got to get the hell out of here, don't we?
Yeah. It's about that time.
Here we go. Cue up the music. Roots Music Rambler is a production of Falls and Partners, copyright 2026. Our theme music is Sheepskin and Beeswax by Gentacorum. Join us online at rootsmusicrambler.com and make sure you mash that subscribe or follow button so you remember to join us for the next Hold Down and Throwdown. She's Frank.
And he's Falls.
And whatever you do, kids, ramble on.